those of you, all of you have your Bibles, would you please turn to James chapter 4. We're going to look at verses 13 through 17 as we continue on a wonderful journey through the letter of James in a sermon series that's been titled Faith That Works. Faith That Works. And as we go back and just take a quick minute to look at where we are and how we've gotten to where we are, and just kind of look at the big ideas. You remember back in week 1, we talked about understanding what it meant to undergo faith under pressure. And the big idea there was that true faith remains steadfast and will ask God for wisdom in times of hardship. We learned in the second week about faith that obeys. So we understand what it meant to ask for faith, and now what it means to obey that, and the fact that faith doesn't change. If it doesn't change us, it's not real. So if faith does not change us, it's not real. We heard a little bit about that from Brother Paul this morning in the devotion. It's about not as much what we say, but how much it changes our lives. In week 3, we learned about faith that doesn't play faithless. And we remember that one being the one where we were introduced to the concept of Amano Dei, where it means that everyone is made in the image of God, and people matter most, right. Okay, so we know that people matter most to God, right? We also in week 4 learned about that precious need of being able to tame the tongue. Understanding that blessed is the person who is quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to get angry, because human anger does not bring forth the righteousness that God desires. In week 5, we looked about learning what it meant to live with wisdom from above. We understood that wise faith is humble, pure, peace-loving, and reveals itself, and again, how we live, not just what we say. Week 6, we talked about faith that will resist the world. Faith that works towards rejecting worldly ideologies and values by doing what? Humbly submitting to God's will. This week we're going to go into week 7 about faith that plans with God. Faith that plans with God. I told you, and I'll keep saying it because it's true, I have found this to be the most, for me, blessings to go through this every week in preparation. There have been aha moments in my life. There's also been some very practical opportunities to put into place the things that I have been gleaning from this. The wisdom, the no-nonsense of James has just been amazing for me, and I hope it has been for you. As we look now at this faith that plans with God, I'm reminded we all have these things in our lives. It's really resonated with me that we live in a culture that is obsessed with planning. We plan careers, vacations, retirements, even the next 5 minutes of our life. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I did something, I don't know if it's something, I think it's a thing. It's called a staycation. So I did a staycation, and so when I took the whole week off, delegated everything, and so people immediately asked me, so, well, where are you going? I said, nowhere. What are you going to do? Nothing. They looked at me like I was crazy. I said, I'm not doing anything, and I'm not going anywhere because that takes planning and work. I'm going to get up when I want to get up. I'm going to do whatever Mark and I decide we want to do. And I'm going to think about as little as I can. I also had another, you all get this, I had another thought just this week as I got into the weekend. I've got some people, that we'll work all the time, whatever. In my vocation, my secular vocation, we're always on, da-da-da-da-da. And I had this epiphany. This is called what do you call Saturday and Sunday? It's called say it again? Say it louder, please. Okay. So, you online too, that's right. Okay, so the weekend. And so in my mind, I said to myself, the weekend means that the work week ends. There should be some sort, we may not be able to do it completely, there needs to be some conscious transition into this thing called the weekend. And many times we don't do that. Sometimes we work 7 days a week, and a lot of times that's seen as being something we promote, but that's really not the way we're designed to be. It's called weekend for a reason. So I'm working on weekends, right? But again, we do this. I wrote this down for you to think about. What's your 5-year, and you've heard this before, what is your 5-year plan? Did we ever say that? Okay. But here's one for you. What is God's 5-year plan for you? As I think about myself and my life and things, right? It's easy to say, what's my plan for the next 5 years? What's my 5-year plan? What am I going to do? Well, let me say this. I ask the young people, don't I? So what's your plan back there? What's your 5-year plan? Right? We do that, don't we? But you know what? That 5-year plan concept never ends. It doesn't matter about what our age is or where we are in our lives as far as, the concept of a 5-year plan. You always need to have plans, right? But I wonder if sometimes we might not, even for the young adults back here, to anyone else in this room, wonder if we ought to maybe kind of reshape that to being, what's God's 5-year plan for me? Why does that matter? Well, it matters because he told the people in Jeremiah, I know the plans I have for you. Plans not to harm you, but to give you hope and a future. So God has a plan in our lives that's for your good and to meet hope and a future. So it's not that we don't plan, but we need to make way to realize that what matters most is what God has planned in our lives. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but it's a thought. So let's go ahead and look at this again. So the big idea here is faith that works does plan boldly, but submits fully to God's will. James again, bless his heart, in verse 13. He gets straight to the matter. I love him. He's no nonsense, straight to it in verse 13. And he asks a question. Now, he seems to have done this a lot. How many times has he said, listen? How many times has he kind of held people right to making them wait a minute? And so he does, now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow, we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. And he poses a question, why? You do not even know what's going to happen tomorrow. What is your life? He gets deeper with it. He grounds them here. What is your life? You are a mist. That appears for a little while and then vanishes. I don't know about you, but that's kind of sobering, humbling. No matter what age you are in the room, I guarantee if you go back and reflect back to as far back as you can remember, from when you were as far back as you can go, if you sit here now and you look back there, it seems like it was just yesterday. Proverbs 27:1 says it this way. Do not boast, and this was concerned, do not boast about tomorrow. Anytime I take for granted, not that I don't plan, I take for granted that tomorrow will go as I plan. We understand here is a form of boasting. It is taking for granted that I have control over something that I do not have control over. In fact, he says, I don't even know really what's going to happen this very day. Much less tomorrow. And he says, remember, because you're but a Proverbs 27:1 says again, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Luke 12:19-20 says it this way. And he's talking about the rich person, the rich man. It's the parable that Jesus gave. And he said, this is the way he said it. And I'll say to myself, don't miss that. Do you remember those two things? I know sermons are supposed to be a test, but sometimes there's an open book test, so here's one of them for you. I said a few weeks ago that people matter most. What else did I say mattered most? People matter most. What was the other one? Motives. Motives matter most. So people matter most. Motive, it's not as much, it's not just what you do, but it's why you do it. Simon Sinek said you should start with the why in whatever it is you do. This is a thought leader out there. So we can challenge our own motives, and whatever it is we're doing, we should quite frankly look ourselves in the face and say, why am I doing what I'm doing? It's about being sincere, because God is not looking as much at what you do. He's looking at the attitude of the heart. So God cares about people, but he cares about motive as well. So again, the rich man said in Luke 12, I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take it easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. That's sobering. Why do we struggle with this? Because we may not think this way, but we love to control the future. We do. Believing our plans are secure. But life's brevity and uncertainty are this thing called constants to remind us of our limits. We can prepare and plan for our future, but at the end of the day, our future's in God's hands. It really is. And that's not a bad thing as long as we're willing to surrender to allow him to have the ultimate say. Because he's already said that what he's going to do is make sure that whatever is done is going to be that which is good. He's going to make sure that he does whatever is going to be his good, perfect, and pleasing will that ties into while you were yet in your mother's womb, every day of your life was preordained, and he had a plan for you. We are, if we think about it as believers, we are the product of God's plan. And he wants to allow his plan to be made realized in our life in a way that not only will make a difference in the time in which we live, but also will always give him glory. Because there's a world that is looking, longing to see and understand a difference. So as long as we work to be better of the same and not dare to be the difference, we've shown nothing any more than what humanity can do of its own will and initiative that in no way gives glory to God. So again, we need to understand this. And let me say this. Please hear this. Planning is not wrong. Planning is not wrong. Presumption is. For those of us who do planning, one of the things you learn to do is what's called identifying risk and mitigations. In every plan that is real, there's always this recognition of needing to do what's called risk management and contingency planning. Because no matter how rigorous we can be in our plans, we always understand there are these things called risk, likelihood of occurrences that can happen. And therefore, in the planning, there are mitigations that will be put in place. One may be to understand what are we going to do in the event that the risk occurs. That is one where we know this has happened before. We've learned from our mistakes, and so therefore we put in place something that will be able to respond if that happens again. But there are also those things as unknown risk, and those are typically ones where if you don't think you can manage the risk yourself, then you would do this thing called transfer the risk. Transferring the risk could be where you may have enough money to take care of yourself today, but you know there might be this thing called an illness that comes that you cannot afford. And so what you do is you will transfer the risk by buying insurance. Because you know that likelihood could occur. It's more than you can manage on your own. So you mitigate it with risk transfer, which is known as insurance. In the believer's life, we're not to become where we're not proficient in doing what we know we can do. Wisdom says we learn from our past mistakes and we put in corrective actions, but there still are these likelihoods of things that might come that are going to be bigger than us, and therefore we know how to transfer the risk to trusting in God. So just as much as the natural realm, we do this thing called planning and risk identification and risk management and risk tolerance and mitigations and sometimes transfer of the risk. All of that is the package that gets put on the table of whomever is making decisions saying this project should occur. Likewise, in our lives, we're called to do the same thing. Whatever your plans are, make them. Recognize where your risks are and then mitigate them. But be very clear to recognize there's going to be something in your plan that will be bigger than you, and you will be quick to know that in that portfolio, that in prayer, you present the whole thing to God. Your calendar may be full, but your life is still in God's hands. That should be comforting for us. Your calendar is full, but your life is in God's hands. Because you're His, and He loves you. He cares about you. He's excited about the things you do. And just as He walked with Adam and Eve in the garden to understand what their day was going to be like, He likewise wants to walk with you and I. You are not alone. And whatever you're doing, wherever you are not alone. So what do? Verse 15, it's a call to submit our plans to God. So he says, as a result of this, instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. Proverbs 16:9 says it this way, in their hearts, human plans their course, but the Lord establishes or orders their steps. The godly man or woman, young woman, boy or girl understands that you boldly go about the things you desire to do as you have recognized the two things that people matter most and motives matter most, and you start your journey. You always understand there's going to be these things called uncertainties that will pop up or trials, and when that happens, you don't have to shriek, you don't have to get weak, you don't have to stay determined. You just need to understand at that point it is going to be definitely where the Lord's will prevail. It allows us to walk and live with this thing called confidence, even in the midst of trials. That's why James opened the letter. He opened with the why when he said, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you're faced with all kinds of what? Trials. Because you know the testing of your faith will develop perseverance. He says, and don't buckle. He says, it must finish its good work so that you will be mature and not lacking anything. That's why this has been a blessing to me. Know this, submitting your plans to God, don't miss this. It's not weakness. It's wisdom. It's wisdom. Whatever it is that if you are cognizant, if you have the emotional intelligence to understand your limitations, to know your limits, to know when you can't go any, that's wisdom. To know you're at a transition point where you need to pause and not just barrel on through, and you need to stop a minute and phone a friend through prayer. That's wisdom. And you know what's so beautiful about it? When we do it that way, when you pray, did you know that God wants to just talk with you? Did you know that you can say, Lord, I love this. Lord, as you know, this or that's been happening. And Lord, as you know, I've been working to try to manage it this way or that way. And Lord, I did acknowledge your word. I have been slow to speak and quick to listen, and I have not been angry. But I still don't know what the next step is I should take. And so, Lord, I have indeed sought wise counsel. But I'm still not clear on what to do. And so I need to trust you because I need to move forward, or you tell me to be still. But I'm at an impasse. Have you ever been at an impasse? In the world, an impasse would mean you just don't have enough faith. Or you need to make up your mind. From a biblical perspective, when impasse comes, biblically, the word says you be still. Your being still does not mean you're weak. Your being still means you are being wise. Because you know you're at a point that's critical now. And every step now matters a little bit more. And so therefore you want to be careful. So again, submitting your plan is not weakness, it is wisdom. Now he gets a little bit deeper. My. He's going to talk to us about two things. He's going to talk to us about one thing we get. He just won't stop. He just won't stop, y'all. He won't stop. We understand this thing called the sin of commission. That is something you know, that's something you did that you know you shouldn't have done even before you did it, much less after you did it, and you have a mess. You know you shouldn't have done it. That's the sin of commission. But from the perspective of the doctrine of sin, there's another side of that coin. It's called the sin of omission. So on this side, you did what you know you shouldn't have done, and there's a consequence. On this side, there was something you knew you should have done and didn't do it. We don't look at that side too often. That guy we know named Bruce, who walked out of that store that day, yes, I'm still thinking about that, and looked over and saw that woman holding her sign that she needed some help, and he rationalized in his mind why that, hear me, that she didn't, let's be real, deserve it, and got in his car and drove off, is guilty of the sin of omission. Oh, no, you're not. That's not between you all and me. That's between him and me. Because that was over a month ago. And while I can't go back and fix that, I'm reminded that when I have this very rapid courtroom gathering on something, I better say, excuse me, let me go talk to the judge. As it is, verse 17, you boast in your arrogant schemes, and all such boasting is evil. Here it is, I didn't make this up. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. That is the doctrine of the sin of omission. Knowing that which we feel prompted that we should do and then don't do is something we should be very, very prayerful and sensitive to. Now, no, it doesn't mean you're walking down the street just throwing out money. I mean, it's not.
That's right.
Oh, here you go. Oh, here you go. Oh, it's not. But there's a prompting. And you don't look for it. It's the prompting of when you see a woman or a man at the kiosk of a store, and you just watch them swipe 3 cards that were rejected, and you see them sitting there for a moment paralyzed with what they have to take out of their buggy. That one, beloved, means that they really don't have the money. Sometimes we can say, oh, no, but there's other times you can, when God gives you the opportunity to stand back unseen and observe something that is a need, and He puts it on your heart, you can swipe that for them.
That's right. That's right.
You didn't give them something to waste. You just gave them something to meet the need you see they have. So no, we're not always throwing it out. But when He gives you those rare, and they're not going to be every day, those rare opportunities, just be, I'm not, just all I'm saying is, just be sensitive to the opportunity. I watched one the other day, and sure enough, he swiped a couple, and he finally got one that worked. And he was okay. But I was there, and Mark was with me, and I was at the point where if he would have had, because one of the things he had, and there was some flowers and a card, it was obvious he was trying to do something for his wife or someone. If that buggy had to pull back to pivot, I would at least said, sir, do you mind if I cover that for you as a gift? Mm-hmm. I already had my story together. But it's because of this reminder. So what do we do again? So when Micah, when the people in Micah's day, when God brought against them a trial against them and talked about the things they were not doing, the people of that day said, oh, so what do you want us to do? Kill our firstborn? Right? What do you want me to do? Throw all my money around anybody I see? What do you want me to do? Just give, just whatever? Is that what you want me to do, Lord? That's what I sounded like. And you know what He says to me? The same thing He said to the people in Micah's day. Let's hear what He said in Micah 6:8. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Oh, mortal. Why do we struggle? We excuse any inaction for busyness. We prefer to define sin as only wrong actions. But James called out the good that we left undone. You see, boasting is not just prideful speech. It's claiming control of our lives apart from God. True faith is expressed not only in avoiding wrong, but in doing right. Don't we? Sometimes we do, don't we? Well, what did I do? Right? Have a conflict with somebody? What did I do? Well, you ever thought about maybe it wasn't what you did, but it was what you didn't do? Right? So next time you say, what did I do? I'm going to make it easy for you. When you say that, think about what maybe was it that you didn't do. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. So again, we understand what he's telling us here, but we struggle with that. Know this, sin is not only what we commit, but it's also what we omit. So let's go home. Head. What do we want to believe? God is sovereign over tomorrow. We are not. Our plans succeed only if it is indeed something that is within His will. How should we feel about this? We need to be overwhelmed not with guilt. That's not God's plan. God is not a guilt. God does not influence with guilt. We do that a lot, but God does not. Our response should be a sense of humility. And that humility is because that in spite of the things that we do or behave that we know we should not, that even in that God still gives us this thing called grace and mercy. And it should allow our response to life just to be just a little bit humble. Because we also understand our lives are brief and our desires need to align with God's will in every decision that we make. What do? One of the things we need to do is begin every plan that I talked about earlier with prayer. And being very clear that, Lord, if it's your will, this is or that will be. This is a good one for me. Hold your calendars and ambitions loosely. Oh, you don't have these problems. See? You don't have these problems. You don't have a problem getting all tangled up when you make your plans for a given day and it just changes. You don't have that problem. Some of us do. Some of us have a problem with, I've got plans for today, and I start my day, and then from the very right out of the gate, something or things happen that prevent not only possibly that plan from being realized, but everything I had planned for that day to be realized. And I don't. Thank you, James. See the lemonade the way I should when life deals lemons. Because I'm ready to get her done. But for me, and I think if you think about this, maybe sometimes for you, God does not allow interruptions in our life to be facetious. He's not just playing with your life. He's not toying with you. When there's transitions or things that happen in our lives that goes contrary to our plans, it's not because He's doing something to us. It's because He's wanting to do something through us. He's wanting us to be part of His agenda because He has the more important opportunity for us that day than whatever it was that we had planned to do on our own. So we just need to be sensitive to that. So hold your plans loosely. Obey the good you already know that God is calling you to do. And remember this, life is short and uncertain. Only God controls tomorrow. Planning is wise, but presumption is sinful. Submission to God's will brings peace and this beautiful thing called perspective. Sin is just not doing wrong, but it's also failing to do that which we know is right. And to that, may all of God's people say,
Amen.